Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And shalom from Yerushalayim and shalom from LA. Hello. Good morning. Rabbi Yosef Kanefsky. Shalom.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. I want to thank the OU, Torah LA, for organizing that event, that meeting. My pleasure. And we will be discussing together resilience, I would say Jewish strength. And we do have a lot to discuss after that challenging year. I want to start by asking something I find fascinating. I'm curious. We were so focused here in Israel, on our problems. Tell me about your community, your shul, the communities in LA at large. I mean, how do you deal with what's going on? Afterwards, I can describe, what's going on in Israel. But how was your year? I remember the atmosphere. I visited twice or even three times. Pico, Robertson, Beverly Hills, all the, not just the shuls, the kosher restaurants and coffee houses. I mean, it's a very, I would say, social distance is not the first thing you think about when you think about Jewish LA. It's everything is so alive and crowded. Tell me about what you've been through this year.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly shell shock at the beginning when we couldn't really comprehend that we were going to be required to do, well, the things that we have done, that we were going to be required to, at first, shut down really everything. And then even after we were permitted to open back up, it didn't last very long, and we were left only with outdoor minyanim, with masks and distancing, of course. And this is such a far cry from what we're used to, from the intimate socialization that's the lifeblood of really who we are and what we do as a community. So at the beginning, it was just shock. How are we ever going to survive this? And I found, in particular, in two areas, that the adjustment and ultimately the resilience really played out. One was in the area of families who had smachot, in particular, families who were celebrating bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, and their whole vision of what was going to be with everybody in the Beit Knesset, and it's packed, and family from out of town, and all of that. Once everyone really kind of internalized the idea that you can't think that way, it's going to be very scaled down. It's going to be very different. So again, there's that initial shock. I remember we had a virtual meeting of all of the families all at once to kind of level with them. But then I found incredible resilience. I found that the kids were still motivated to learn their Kriyat Torah and whatever it was, their Divrei Torah. And I found that the parents were newly motivated. And this came from a number of places. This came from the solidarity the kids felt with each other, that they all realized they were in the same boat. And that made a huge difference. It lifted a huge burden off the kids' shoulders, knowing that all their friends were going through the same thing. And I think for the parents, once they saw that their kids were, just as enthusiastic and just as motivated to complete whatever study they were doing, to perform in whatever minyan kind of thing that we were able to put together for them, outdoors and so on, the parents were very relieved. And then what happened was that they all kind of recognized the essence, the essence of what this is. It's about reaching Gil Mitzvot. It's about assuming your place in the community. And it's not about, all of the frills and all of the crowds and all of the bands. And, those are wonderful things. And with God's help, we'll have those again soon, hopefully soon. But they really grasped the essence of it, and the simcha was no less, even though the trappings were less. And same for weddings, same for baby namings and brit milah, and that was really a mark of resilience. And then, of course, the Yamim Noraim was the other area where how do you imagine doing Yamim Noraim? Our Beit Knesset has no outdoor space whatsoever. We don't have a parking lot, nothing. So we were scrambling. We found 7, 8 backyards. And we had to find Ba'alei Tefillah, and usually it's a specialized thing. How many people know how to lead the Tefillot on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, to do the Kriyat Torah? And people just came out of the woodwork saying, I can do it. I did it once in college. I can do it. And I can learn it. Just send me a tape. I can learn it. And literally, it took like 150 volunteers, but these various minyanim together for logistics. And people were so eager to serve the community. And the best thing? Nobody complained. No complaints. Because the sense
that's the best thing for a Rav,
that we're doing something important here, that we're showing our resilience, our willingness to serve God and be a community, even though the circumstances was hot in Rosh Hashanah, it's hot in Yom Kippur. There was a lot of resilience. And, now we're just trying to get through that last bit of this, these last few months, just a little bit more, and looking forward. But with God's help, there's a lot of good stuff that happened. And if it can carry over, really understanding the essence of what a simcha is, really understanding the power of volunteering, if those things can carry over, that will have been a silver lining for sure.
Wow.
Tell me about what's going on in Medinat Israel.
Yeah. So first of all, the things you described are quite the same here, the smachot and the Yamim Noraim, definitely. I do want to add a few things that are definitely going on here. I'll just start by saying I was supposed to be there right now. Okay, me, my family, my husband Yedidia, and our 5 kids, we all moved to New York a year ago as World Mizrahi Shlichim. Mizrahi movement sent us there to visit, to be in touch with the Jews all over North America. So we lived there for 10 months, basically. I want to show you something. That's us. You remember Ben Gurion Airport? One of the holiest places in Israel.
Yes, it's been over a year now. It's a very rare thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how we all looked the day we left Israel. That's us. The guy waving there is Rabbi Doron Peretz, the head of Mizrahi movement, and that's us, Yedidia and I, Aharon, Tamar, Netanel, Hillel, Yehudit, with Rav Kook's picture. We took it to New York, to hang it, in the new house, and we were excited to meet the Jews all over North America. And what happened was, and no, it was fascinating, and we really felt like there's so much to do. We committed for 2 years of shlichut, and we visited, Pika. That's not, that's a huge community, but visiting small communities in Memphis and Dallas, and meeting the Israelis who live in America and they do not have communities, and working with NCSY, Hillel, Chabad, and it was really fascinating. 10 beautiful months. But then, no spoilers, what happened. And before Pesach, we felt it's the end of the shlichut. I mean, no communities, no flights, nothing, no schools for the kids. We're foreigners. New York, the situation there was awful. And we basically ran away. It was our Yetziat Mitzrayim, Yetziat New York. And that was the end of our shlichut. 2 days before Leil HaSeder, the only flight, you can see Ben Gurion Airport behind us once again, but so different. No one's there. The only flight on that day, an empty plane, and we were quarantined for 14 days. And basically, the kids are still asking us, so are you sure it's the end? I mean, we left so many things behind. Remember Rav Kook's picture? I do not know where it is, basically, because we just took, basic things and escaped. We have, Chipazon, exactly. We felt it, before Pesach, and we arrived here. We're very happy to be here, and I feel, we're staying here, at least for now. It's not everything we did that was a mitzvah is basically considered now an avera. Okay, everything we did, the lectures, the events, the Shabbatot, being scholar in residence, visiting campuses and schools, everything is really changed. So from my perspective, there we lived in North Woodmere, and so there and here in Israel, when we came back here, what I saw was, I think, a new type of Mesirut Nefesh, self-devotion. Maybe I should say Mesirus Nefesh, because I forgot the Ivris, okay? I speak Ivrit.
Either way, I think we get it, yeah.
You can get it. No, there are some Americans, you should translate from Ivrit to Ivris all the time, but so basically, yeah, I think that self-devotion, that Mesirut Nefesh, is a new concept. Because let's be honest, we're quite spoiled, okay? In America, in New York, everything is in a way comfortable, accessible, available. You have hundreds of minyanim, types of shuls and communities. You can just choose, live concerts of Jewish music. I saw it, at 5 towns. You can just the culture, the I would say variety of things that are going on. It's very easy to be a Jew, even in America and Baruch Hashem here in Israel. And for the first time, I believe you have that narrative of your version of Mesirut Nefesh. Now, my grandmother, Safta Ada Aleh Shalom, was a Holocaust survivor. I do not compare. It's not the same Mesirut Nefesh. Your ancestors, we all share, stories of heroism. It's a different type of heroism. It's not like anti-Semitism, wars, terror attacks, Holocaust, it's pogroms. It's something else. But yeah, that's Mesirut Nefesh. I'll give you a few examples from here, from Israel. First of all, people who are quarantined on Yom Kippur. 2 of our daughters were here. That room that behind me, completely locked, 4 walls, that's it, 24 hours, the holiest day. They're stuck there, 2 of them together. I told them, it's going to be a historical Yom Kippur, in your lifetime. My husband, after he told them, about that special opportunity, trying to explain about their Mesirut Nefesh, in order to save other people's life. There's a narrative here. We're not doing it just for ourselves. It's to help others. After my husband finished, explaining about their Mesirut Nefesh, someone called us, and told us, my husband, we all planned to daven together. There's a big garden here in Yerushalayim, and we all planned to be there together. And then someone told us, no, the neighbors, Levy family, their daughter has COVID-19 now, she's positive, and can you please stand next to their window, okay? They live on the 2nd or 3rd floor. You will stand down there in the parking lot, and you will daven there on Yom Kippur. Now you tell me, I told my husband, it's an opportunity. I know you planned to be with like 50 people, in that public area, that garden. Now you move to that parking lot, 10 people, that's all. Just to help the Levis, to have their Kol Nidrei, their Ne'ilah. Will you ever have such a Yom Kippur? It's amazing. I mean, the new opportunities to help others. And if we see it that way, I believe it will help us and help our communities. And there's another thing you see in Israel, maybe you see it only in Israel, people who do not attend, who do not come to shul on regular basis, shul comes to them. I posted something on Facebook. A woman from the city of Ramat Gan at the center of Israel, she wrote every morning, she drinks her coffee. Good morning, by the way. It's our morning now and your evening. So she sits, just imagine a secular woman, Chiloni in Ramat Gan, sitting in her kitchen, but through the window, for the first time in her life, she hears Shacharit, Mincha, Arvit, Kabbalat Shabbat, and she loves it. So I posted that, thought she sent me, and I got thousands of, you can Google and see thousands of people, thousands, because it became viral, describing their experience as people who do not, they don't pay, no fees, they're not members, they do not have a official community, but now they have one. It's in their backyard, parking lot, the sidewalk, the pavement, next to their kids' school or kindergarten. It's everywhere. In Hebrew, so I wrote, the headline of what I wrote was, Hashchina yotzet lashchuna. Okay, the people can check their Hebrew. The holiness, Shechina, the blessed part of our life, holiness, it goes out, it comes, now it's part of the Shechuna, the neighborhood. In Hebrew it rhymes. And the Hashchina is definitely at the Shechuna right now. And that's, I don't know if you see it there, since, it's not a Jewish state. But here, we see many examples of, wow, what I always think, okay, and afterwards, the day after, what will happen when we'll go back to our shuls? Will they come with us? Will we remember them and be out there for them sometimes? So these are just a few thoughts. I do want to hear more about virus COVID-19. It's the pandemic itself. I mean, did it hurt anyone in your community? I know in LA, definitely in your community, where people passed away, people were sick, ill, how they felt, people who has other disease before that challenge started. I mean, how do you deal with that part of the year we had?
Yeah. And this is of course, if we spoke of a silver lining of discovering sources of resilience, the silver lining is in a very dark cloud. Literally, as we speak today, the county of Los Angeles set another terrible record of the number of people infected in one day, the number of deaths in one day, the number of hospitalizations in one day. And I think that our community, our Jewish community, our Orthodox community, much like the rest of America, and probably beyond, has really struggled, in my view, to seriously understand what the implications of this virus are, and what moral and religious responsibility it places upon us. I mean, together with some of my rabbinic colleagues who are also part of this OU event, we've been working very hard since March to try to persuade people that there's a moral responsibility, a halachic responsibility to be careful, to wear face coverings, that there is a responsibility that we have to prevent disease from spreading. If God forbid we are infected and we don't know it, and we would spread the disease to someone else. I mean, that's it's uncalculable. What damage we could cause, and people struggle to really grasp that we had this responsibility on our shoulders, and either because they found it inconvenient, or they found it bothersome, or somehow it just didn't seem real, right? Because you can't see a virus. It doesn't look like anything. And just the power of denial. I'll be fine, my friends will be fine, my family will be fine. It's dafka now in December that we're finding out that this is not the case. And whereas certainly in our neighborhood, our Orthodox community, in Pico Robertson, for example, there were few cases, relatively speaking, early on. Now there are more and more. And one of the things that we really have to think about after this is, the idea of arivut, the idea, lo ta'amod adam re'echa, you can't take other people's lives lightly. There's a moral and halachic responsibility for other people's lives that we have. Something didn't connect. I don't know what it is. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just, it's something that as a Rav in the community and the Rabbanim in the community will really have to think about. What did we fail to communicate? Was it the way we tried to communicate it? But the sense that we are arivim for others, that sense didn't fully take root, unfortunately. And right now, we're seeing the consequences. It's tough. And I know you've struggled similarly.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, in Israel, the numbers are different. I remember the day we left New York, they spoke about 1,000 people who passed away, who died in New York on that day. And afterwards, I follow the news. I saw every day 1,000 people. It was at the beginning of that period. So yeah, in Israel, the numbers are different. They say in a few days we'll reach number 3,000 people who passed away. It's each person, each soul is a whole full world, and it's precious. But still, it's a low. The number is not. You can't compare it when you compare it to other countries. What's going on now in Europe. I just had a Zoom meeting with Jews in London. Situation is so complicated there, and in the States, France, Germany. So in a way, and that's why people aren't so afraid, because they do not hear about many death occasions. They feel they're safe, they're secure, since we don't even have 300 people who died, 3,000 people who died. So it's not so dangerous. I think in a way, as you said, I sometimes think about the spiritual challenge, and I'm not sure we're facing it. I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, we try. Yeah, people do whatever it takes, wearing a mask. But yeah, I also feel sometimes we didn't convey the message in the right way. You speak as a Rav. I speak more as a journalist, here in Israel. In a way, I think what people need is a story, a narrative. The reason we just stood for 8 nights lighting the menorah, the Chanukiah, is not because there is a technical manual saying, okay, you should light one candle, the next day please add a candle. It's not IKEA, okay? It's not like the technical instructions. It's a story. We do the technical things because we share a mutual story. That's what I think is relevant here. I mean, if we had a story to share with people, something that will uplift people. Yeah, we all fight together. Look, solidarity. I know in America it became a political thing. Okay, Hashem Shmo. Here, Baruch Hashem, we all agree there's such a thing. You should all wear masks. People sometimes, ignore the instructions, but they don't claim it. I don't care who you vote for. Okay, I mean, it's not the party. We all understand the instructions, but still, I think if we had like a Jewish fascinating story, people would think about it as a mitzvah. Okay, what I do now is a mitzvah. I save other people's life. What I do is important. And the minute you have that story, you see people, teenagers, volunteers, people, organizations who do really enormous, beautiful things. Here, I'll just share one story here from Israeli society. Story about the new type of chesed we need. And when we have our concept of chesed, right? For years, we know chesed, there's tzedakah, charity, giving maser, giving a part of the money you earn. It's very important. And there's chesed, you can volunteer with those who are in need in certain ways. I think now we need creative chesed, since people that in the past we didn't describe them as people in need. There are new needs now, new people who need help, new types of help. And there's a story I brought from New York with me, and I share it here in Israel. I want to share it here once again, because it helped me realize the new type of chesed we need. It's like a new generation of chesed. This story took place before the Seder night, before the Seder in New York. A Jewish woman, an old Jewish widow, was alone, obviously. The kids can't come, it's forbidden, the grandchildren. And she felt quite miserable. The neighbor knocked on her door, asking her if she wants him to open the door. So she will be able to listen. She will not participate, but at least she will be able to hear Leila Seder. It was, they live on the same floor, 2 apartments. She said yes. And afterwards, the first day of Chol HaMoed, her son calls her, asking, Mommy, how was your Leila Seder? And she said, the best. Since your father passed away, since Abba died, the best. I never had such a Seder. This family, it's like our version, our nusach, our tradition, everything they do, the way they sing, the way they read the Haggadah, everything is according to our heritage. I felt like Abba is alive again, all the nuances, the tone, everything. And the son said, Mommy, now I understand. The neighbor called me before Leila Seder, and he asked me, can I record our nosach, our version, the way we do it. So I recorded, I sent him a file, sound of the way we do our Seder. Turns out he learned it by heart. The whole day, the whole world struggling, so many things to do before Seder night, I guess. No, he just took a few minutes, he learned it by heart. In order to make that widow happy. L'sameach lev almana, one of the basic mitzvot. And when I heard that story, I felt, okay, that's the type of chesed, it's the type of chesed we need. It's not just, okay, I can open the door. I guess I would open the door as her neighbor. Yeah, opening the door for an old widow, it's nice. No, think about what they really need, okay? Look into their eyes and find new ways of helping them. They're not poor, but people became poorer socially, I think, now. The neighbors upstairs. Now, while we're speaking, we have two families here in our building quarantined. People take it, Baruch Hashem, take it seriously. I mean, they're not, they don't have COVID-19, but they met people who are positive, and they are both families. The floor here in our building, we try to take care of them. I know how much people helped us when we were in the same situation. So in a way, once again, it exposes, I think, new types of things that are already within us, but we should reveal them. So yeah, creative chesed, that's my slogan for that period, I think.
Mhm. Right, and we're so good, and we've been good as a community when we need to extend chesed to people who are clearly and obviously in need. And again, it doesn't mean necessarily economic or financial need. It can also be people, and we and I'm sure others as well, we supported, hospital workers, other essential workers, people, well outside the Jewish community, but who we knew were being exposed every day to health dangers because of the work they were doing, the heroic work, the firefighters, the emergency workers, and people really responded to that. And people were falling over one another, trying to figure out how can I help the people who I can clearly identify as being on the front lines, as being heroic, as exposing themselves to danger in order to service the community and to service those who are ill. And of course, God forbid, when actually community members became ill and have become ill with COVID, again, make meals and I drop it off on your porch and let me pick up your groceries. The trick that we have to think about is getting us to think one step back. And people who are not yet or not at this time sick, not at this time suffering, not at this time, everything seems to be okay. And to be able to say, well, in the circumstances that we're in, you could be okay today, and God forbid by tomorrow, really not okay. And the difference between today and tomorrow could be what I do. And when it's theoretical and abstract, that's the bridge we still have to cross, and it's hard. We've never been through anything like this before.
Yeah, everything is fragile, and those who helped yesterday, they need help right now. But I want to ask you something personal. I hope it's okay, but I'm Israeli, man. Maybe it's not so polite. Right. Personally, as a Rav, I mean, what I saw in the States, I admire, the communities you all built. These are empires of identity. I was shocked, by the way. The first community I ever visited in the States, Beth Jacob, your neighbors, Beth Jacob community, Beverly Hills, 90211. I remember the zip code because,
I don't know the zip code. Okay.
Yeah. For me, it was, wow, Beverly Hills, 90211. Maybe Brendan will show up, the neighbors, 90210. Anyway, I remember the first time I visited that community as a scholar in residence 3 or 4 years ago, and I was shocked, okay? Now, I'm quite embarrassed to say it now, but yeah, I remember, I entered the building, and someone comes and says, "Hi, I'm the president of the shul." Now, as an Israeli, I thought he's joking. He's laughing at me. Why do you need a president? I mean, we have President Rivlin. Why do you need a president for the shul? And then his wife introduced. I was like, okay, that's like the first lady. I don't know. And then he says, that's our Rav. I said, okay, shul definitely needs a Rav. That's okay. Now he says, that's our assistant rabbi. Okay, this rabbi needs help. I don't know what's going on here. And then he goes, this is the youth coordinator. Okay, once again, what do you need? Why do you need a youth coordinator? You just daven and come back home. I mean, why do you? And then he introduces the whole staff, and I realized I know nothing about the way you built your identity, your communities abroad. You need that system. So many workers and people who do things, and you have it almost in each shul, since it's like a center of social things and activities. You go to APAC and you have social activities, and for youth, the way I still remember the rooms, kids from 2 to 4 years old, you will sit here, but no, that's for the teenagers, that's for the more mature kids. I love it. I just want to say it was new in my eyes, because in a way we're all one big community here in Israel. Maybe it's a shame. Maybe we should learn from you. I think we need stronger communities. Sometimes you see it. I mean, you have small villages, settlements. Sometimes inside big cities, you do have communities, but in general, it's different. Now, the purpose, I think that you are much more connected to your shul. The first time I visited a shul was in America a year ago before we left, and that's it. Yeah, I miss it, but I think you miss it much more. I mean, for you as personally as a Rav, the drashot, the speeches, the way you said, you see on Shabbat, they all come, women come, kids come. It's like that. It's the center of everything, and it's like your heart in a way, and this heart is now closed. And I think it's much harder there than here. I see Jews everywhere. Now in after this conversation, groceries. I'll go to the grocery store. I'll meet. There will all be Jews almost, and you need. You can't meet as Jews. And how hard is it? How much do you miss? Meeting people, hundreds of people. In your big communities.
Yeah, I mean this is both the downside and ultimately I think the upside, in the sense that the feeling of loss when the Batei Knesset really couldn't function and are still not functioning anywhere near normal. The feeling of loss is very profound. I found it in particular among parents who have young children, because there's a variety of religious activities that we're permitted to do outdoors by law. But for really small children who have a hard time sitting and staying in one place, understandably, they're small children. But you can't really have those kind of activities. You can't take the chance that they're going to be running around. And it's very hard. Those families felt really bereft. And we had to think in all kinds of creative ways, how to engage, how to connect, how to enable people to feel they're part of something larger, even when they're physically not in the same space. And so the downside is that the closing of, or the limiting of the functioning of the Batei Knesset in this COVID time was, I think, especially difficult and depressing for families, in particular families with young children and older people who felt, justifiably so, that they really shouldn't be taking any chances at all and really stayed home. On the other hand, that's why I'm optimistic that with God's help, 4 months from now, 5 months from now, wherever it is, we'll rebound, because I think that people so terribly miss that experience of, because what Beit Knesset is here that it's not in Israel as much. It is our moment at which we emerge from the world that we're normally functioning in, which is not a Jewish world per se, and we find that comfort of being among people with whom we share religious tradition, with whom we share our common narrative, our historical narrative, with whom we share our anxieties, with whom we share our hopes and fears, and our dreams. That's so comforting. And I think that's why, in the end, our Bate Knesset, they'll rebound. People will come back because
Yeah.
the sense of what has been lost, I think, is very, very deeply felt. And I'll tell you, the people, what I'm worried about most, and I know less about, the schools obviously are struggling. It's very hard to run schools, to keep schools open. Some kids are staying only, on virtual, only on Zoom, and I worry about two things. One, the experience that kids are having, and will it be something of a lost year educationally? And that's hard to fix. That's hard to compensate for. And I also worry that people may say, and I hope to God this is not true, but people may say, I was already having trouble affording, Jewish day school. I just went through this whole year. It wasn't a good experience. Maybe it's time to reconsider. And
Wow.
I'm worried about that. I'm worried about that struggle. And obviously, the people who are the menahalim of the schools are worrying about this in a far deeper and more specific way. But that's something to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, no, I hear a
Schools
lot
are
about
not-
that specific thing. I find, I also think I'm worried about it because many Israelis who come to America do not go to Jewish schools, and I work with many organizations and people who try to attract more Israeli kids to Jewish schools. I think it's essential. I mean, it's so important, and yeah, you're right. In a way, it's really. I think you touched a very important thing. I want to add maybe two other things after hearing it. You said you spoke about how much you miss your shul. I also want to tell you from what I see and hear, people also miss Israel. I mean, I speak to communities abroad. I now when I think back about all the communities we visited, we're still in touch with people from Montreal, Toronto, Maryland, Florida, California, so many people in Jersey, so many places, Washington, we visited. And there are places, it stopped, in the middle of the year. So things, are still booked. When I look at my schedule, I can tell you, I was supposed to be in Cleveland, that Shabbat. So I'm in Yerushalayim, but there's a whole tour planned, the flights, everything is booked because the Americans are well planned. So everything was booked beforehand and everything is canceled. It's only here on my schedule. So when I miss those communities and we're in touch through Zoom, it's a miracle, by the way. I had no idea. I didn't know the word Zoom a year ago. And it
And what
changed.
would we do now? Where would we be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It changed our lives. So in a way, when I speak to those communities, I hear how much they miss Yerushalayim. Sometimes they even ask me to show them Yerushalayim. I take the injured camera, just show them the view. It's not something, just a street on Yerushalayim, and it makes them so excited. I remember a group of women from Panama, a group of students from Poland. They asked me to show them Yerushalayim since they can't come here for almost a year. The gates are locked. Obviously, it's okay. They're supposed to be locked, but it's your home too, and you can't come. And people people come on Pesach, Shavuot, high holidays, summer vacations. Their kids are here for a gap here. They're used to. It's always open. Israel's always open, and now it's closed. So I know how much they miss Israel. I want to tell you something. Israel misses you. Yerushalayim misses you. Really, it's empty without the American accent. It's empty without all the on Machne Yehuda market. When I went to the Kotel a few weeks ago, the Kotel, by the way, it's quite an experience. It is, it's like capsules in a very creative way. They built like they divided the Kotel into small places for 20 people. So at the Ezrat Nashim, it was very, very special. We walked with the kids, but they said, "Mommy, there are only Israelis here. We're used to, the Kotel. It's the center for all the tourists, Jews and non-Jews.
All the
And you're
languages.
not there.
And, yeah.
yeah, the accents, the experience, dancing together. So nobody dances, but you're not here, and Yerushalayim misses you. You're part of our pulse here. So it's a message. It's important for me to say it to the people who watch us. I also want to share. Yeah, no, you wanted to say something.
Right, and it's the kids. I mean, one of our youngest was in his gap year last year,
Where?
and at Yeshivat Oraita, and
Yeah.
the I guess it was the Motzei Shabbat right after Purim, I guess. Suddenly get an email, everybody's coming home,
Wow.
and you don't get more than one gap year. You got one. And the kids, thank God, the kids who went this year, they're there. And I know it's
Yeah.
not exactly the same. I'm sure it's not exactly the same, but they're there and they're enjoying being there. And that really goes to what
Yeah.
you said, that there's something qualitatively different about being in Israel, being in Yerushalayim, for those of the rest of us, whether we're habitually there at least once a year or more, or even just knowing that we can go.
Yeah. Yeah, you know how much it's like like insulting. A friend of mine from LA, she told me it's like insulting. I know I can always book a flight and fly, and I can be in Israel the next day, and now I can't. So yeah, maybe it makes us appreciate, like we appreciate the community, the shul. We appreciate the zchut, the privilege to visit and to live in Israel. I wanted to share, maybe that will conclude our this session. I wanted to share like a tip, okay? I heard in it like a piece of advice, a tool that might help people during this crisis. In Hebrew, it says Museum HaKorona, COVID-19 Museum. I heard it from a psychologist. We had a Zoom panel with many experts. I spoke about the parsha and spoke as a journalist, but she spoke as a psychologist. She said it's like part of the treatment now. Try to build your own COVID-19 museum, meaning try to look at that year from a new perspective. How will you tell your kids, grandchildren, how will you tell future generations about that experience? Uh, Imagine you run the COVID-19 museum. Okay, so first of all, you should imagine it ended, and then tell me what will you tell them about this thing we all been through together. And people started sending me. It's like something I do on Israeli TV, the morning show. I ask people to send us materials, pictures, videos, photos, things they do, and what they think will be part of that museum. I want to show you a few examples. Uh, Look at the first picture, please. Okay, that will definitely be part of the COVID-19 museum. We just described the cotton. So yeah, wearing a mask as a kippah. I think it's a very creative thing to do. By the way, that guy, he smiles behind, under the mask. You don't see it. The fact you could not see the interpretations, what people feel. You don't see them smiling. But anyway, that was the first thing people sent to that museum. And we do it almost every week. We show examples. For example, I think, and you described the smachot, I think we will definitely tell future generations about the special smachot we had. Look, this couple, Chaim and Liora, they just got married. But look at the way they invite their guests, okay? They ask them to come according to their family name. If your family name starts from Aleph to Chet, the first alphabet letters, please come at 7. But if your family name starts, from Tet to Ein, and then from Pei to Taf, okay, that's how they divide. That's how they built that night. How will I explain, my grandchildren that situation, that reality? Once again, new type of Mesirut Nefesh. Now look at that invitation. I think in 3,000-4,000 years of Jewish history, never has such an invitation been printed. Shabbat Bar Mitzvah. Parashot, look, Naso, Behalotcha, Shlach, and Korach. 4 parashot. I never heard of such an event. I mean, usually you invite people for your parasha, but that family They were quarantined. They were positive, the father and some of the kids, and they were completely isolated for 3 weeks. And then they said, how can we miss parashot? How can we ignore those three parashot? Now they had time to learn the Torah reading, obviously, for 3 weeks. So they read four parashot, quite long, okay, in my
You know,
opinion.
I was going to ask,
But
have they finished yet? Are they still going?
yeah, I don't know if you want to be the Rav, then that morning in shul. But yeah, that's I think I would say very creative and special. And yeah, those are the moments we will cherish. Jewish resilience, Jewish strength. Maybe two last pictures. We showed them both here on Israeli TV. That's Dizengoff Square, Kikar Dizengoff, at the center of Tel Aviv, considered a secular city, a secular environment. No, no secular people now. I believe people, and what you see, that picture was taken before Yom Kippur started. Okay, people you see, they're all dressed in white, and they prepare themselves for Kol Nidrei. There were more than 1,000 people there. There's room, there's place for everyone outdoors, and I think once again it's a very special thing that is created right now. People daven outside, and and that's considered a secular neighborhood in Israel. I think it's very special. And this thing, okay, Thorn Hill, Canada. I interviewed that community, that Rav of that community, since that's their ordinary mincha. Now, in LA, I think it's much hotter, but in Israel too. But once the people in Israel were shocked, we interviewed them, on Israeli TV, and they were like, wow, that's like, I think it makes you appreciate the things we do here together. And I urge people to open. I don't show those examples because they're cool. I show them in order to make other people to open their COVID-19 museum. It helps because you look from a very positive perspective, and you always want to remember the moments you share with your. I'll give you an example here. In our house, our kids, whenever something happens, they say, "Oh, mommy, zele museum corona." That's something for COVID. Your museum. I mean, and it changes the way they look at obstacles or challenging things. I just described our Yom Kippur with two girls isolated. So, oh, mommy, Museum Corona. Mommy, will you put it on Museum Corona? So, in a way, I think it might help people, collecting those things. If you have cool examples from LA, you can send them, we're interested. But yeah, it's a new way of thinking. Okay, it's limited. It will end. One day we will even laugh and take good things out of that craziness. So that's just a very simple tip, very, very tachlis.
Right. And it's going to be important for us to reinforce the message once this is done. We did it, and we should celebrate the fact that we did it. We got through it. And it shouldn't go unstated. It should be stated and celebrated, because there's so much we have learned and will be learning about our resilience. If we stop for a moment and look back and say, look at the obstacles, look at all of the reasons that we could have, really come apart entirely as a community, and that we didn't. We made it through, and we learned how to be creative, and we learned how to do things in different ways than we've ever done them before. We made the effort, and we succeeded. And that's going to be, again, a lesson to be explicitly celebrated and explicitly in future years looked back at and pulled out of the hat and say, see that? See how we did that? We can certainly do this.
Yeah. Beautiful. This is our chapter in future history books. Yeah.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Who's going to believe this? Really? That's what happened? What? That's what happened.
Beautiful. So, Toda Rabba. Thank you very much.
And to you as well.
Rabbi Yosef Kanefsky. Thank you, OU, Rabbi Adir Posey, who organized that session and other great events. And I described you miss Yerushalayim. I miss Pico Street. Okay, send my regards. And
We can
hope to
switch.
see. Yeah, yeah. Hope to see you all soon. בעזרת השם, בשורות טובות להתראות.
Yeshivot v'nechamot. Good to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.